Hey, Soul Tribe. Welcome back. This is episode 1.13 of Beyond Deconstructing. I'm your host, T Jamaica Pogue, and I'm super excited to have a returning guest. Stephen joined me a few months ago in episode 1.10, and in this one, we pick up right where we left off. So there's kind of no introduction once we get to the interview portion. We just went straight into it and had a very candid conversation back and forth. Trigger warning, we do discuss depression as well as suicide, and I don't say that to scare anybody, but just as a trigger warning, because this episode is a little bit different than some of the ones you may be used to. Again, because we've already spoken. So if you want to get a little bit of background on his story and understanding his diagnosis later in life, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to episode 1.10. But this one is a little bit different. We get very real, very candid about what's going on, and we discuss how the role that society plays in disabling us further. Not just because we are autistic and have, other comorbid disabilities that go along with that, but just in general, how society is designed to keep us from being able to thrive and keep us in survival mode, which subsequently weighs heavily on our mental, emotional, and physical health. And so we did broach some kind of sensitive topics, but I think that it is very important that we have these kinds of conversations, especially because so many people feel like they are alone in their journeys and they self-isolate. And I think it's really important that we highlight that this is something that other people are going through. You're not alone. And I hope that this episode and this conversation really helps to reaffirm that people who may be experiencing the same thing aren't crazy. You aren't alone. This isn't something that is your fault and you're just a bad person and don't have the skills to cope, but rather this society doesn't give us the skills to cope. It doesn't give us the framework to be able to thrive, and it actually is designed to keep us in survival mode, fighting and scratching and clawing for respect and for peace, and it just shouldn't be that way. But since it is, we need to come together and have a safe space to talk about it, and today was one of those days, and I really enjoyed it, and I hope you guys will too. How have you been?
I've been about the same. Not great.
I don't like to hear that. But
I don't like to say it either. But yeah, I mean, things are, I don't know. I have hope for the future, but like I've still been having trouble finding a job. I've been taking 2 classes this semester, which has been interesting. I'm about to wrap that up. So I don't know. I feel like the end of the semester, I can focus more attention on the job hunt. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Are you looking for a remote or a hybrid?
I would prefer remote or hybrid, especially because I don't know why I applied to this school. So I applied to a state school, so UMass Boston, thinking like, I've attempted, I can't remember how much of my college story I've told you, but I got kicked out of college in 2004 for being gay. Then I went back a couple of times and it just like didn't work out for whatever reason. Like there were a couple of times it was just like too much doing school full time on top of work full time. So I was like, well, you know what? The state school is going to be cheaper. Maybe I'll get more financial aid. So let me just go there. And I feel like it's kind of my last attempt because my college, the first school that I went to that kicked me out, I owe them $500 for skipping chapel. And they were like, this last time I applied, I needed my transcripts from them. And they were like, we can't give you the transcripts because you owe this fine for skipping chapel from 20 years ago. And I was like, listen, you've released my transcripts before, so I don't know why it's just a problem now. And they were like, okay, well, this is the last time. If you need them again, you need to pay that. So I'm like, okay, this is my last chance. But this school, for some reason, doesn't have like a separate professional studies college. Like there's no like school geared specifically toward full-time work. So like
Mhm.
a lot of the classes are during the day. So I feel like I need to do a remote job just in case I need that flexibility to like pop out in the middle of the day to do classes. For the next
Yeah.
semester, I was able to find some that are in the evenings, so I'm not as worried about that. So hopefully I'm like, my plan is to find a job and get in somewhere and like work like a full semester before I need to ask for like accommodations. Uh,
Yeah.
we'll see. I don't know.
That's rough. I'm definitely sorry to hear that, but it's relatable. Like I'm so mad. Like I would have been graduating next month if I didn't quit my last job that was paying for my school.
Oh
But once I quit,
no.
yeah, I had tuition reimbursement, so that's why I was able to like choose a school that wasn't a state school but had an accelerated program. Like it was I forget what they called it, but it was specifically for distance learners for you to learn on your own time. You didn't have set class times, you just had set assignment due date
Yeah.
times. And it was working for me. And I had gotten to the point where I had already written my capstone paper for my psychology degree, and I only had a few classes left. But I can't afford to pay for it myself. But there was
Yeah.
no way I was going to continue to work at this job that disrespected me and had no intention of accommodating me in any fucking way. So I had to quit. But luckily, I found a new job that is 100% remote. I work from home. um, is it the most fulfilling? No. I'm pretty bored most of the day, but it could be worse because I work for a travel company. It's an awesome company. It's actually a really good company. Almost 100. It's been around for almost 100 years. Lasted through the pandemic, so that's. I mean,
Yeah,
that
that's
tells you
nice.
something, about their culture and their structure. Um, but I'm so tired of talking to people on the phone all day, and having to mask. Like even though I'm not in the office and like having to do the whole small talk thing and the whole politics thing with that, I'm still masking to an extent because every time I pick up that phone and every time someone calls in and I have to talk to them, I have to turn it on. I
Yeah.
can't just answer it and be like, "Thank you for calling." I have to be like, "Thank you for calling. My name is Tiara. How can I help you today?" And I'm just like, I'm tired of doing that. I'm so over it. But it's like I need money. I have to pay my bills. So like how else am I gonna do that and be able to work from home or work for myself? It's funny, like I was just talking to, I don't know if you know, her name is Plum Cake on TikTok.
I don't think
She's a
so.
black TikTok creator. Okay. But she's also an autistic creator. That's who I was just speaking with. And we were talking about like that selective masking and how like even when you get to a certain point of unmasking and you think that you mastered being yourself, you go out into the real world and the real world is like, well, no, no, you have to perform this role because if you don't, you won't get a job or you won't keep your job, which means you can't feed yourself and you won't have health
Yeah.
insurance. And it's so freaking stressful. It's a lose-lose situation. It's like I either kill myself continuing to mask 100% of the time, or now that I'm getting more comfortable with who I am, I feel like I'm betraying who I am because in situations I have to choose to actively mask because it's less stressful and less painful to just mask temporarily for this person so that they don't make my life living hell by firing me or blackballing me.
Yeah.
And it's just like, we can't win.
Yeah, I relate to that so deeply. It's exhausting being on all day. And like my career has been in learning and development. And so like as a trainer, it's kind of the same. You're like customer service, like you just have to be on and like always thinking about. I feel like what's so exhausting about it is just the like mental effort of like monitoring and like that part is really exhausting. Like I find it energizing actually to like teach something that I really know inside and out that I think is like of benefit to somebody. Like that's really fun for me. But like the policing of like my tone, is my face doing something weird or is it like doing anything at all?
Exactly. It's like you're always doing twice the work because you have to be conscious of, you have to regulate yourself
Yeah.
manually like all the time. Like I just made a video about this not too long ago where somebody was talking about like forced eye contact, and then I like made a video about the forced eye contact, and that made me realize that like a lot of things that went over my head in the moment, like people's passive aggressive statements or things that are being implied, I'm not stupid. But I probably didn't pick up on what you were saying because I was only half paying attention to you and half trying to figure out if I was giving you the right eye contact
Right.
or if I was like not looking like, having resting bitch face or something like that. I'm so preoccupied, or half of my brain is so preoccupied in regulating what I'm doing to make you feel comfortable that I'm not comfortable, and I missed what you were trying to imply. So now you've gotten one over on me, or I've missed the point of what's being said. And it's so fucking frustrating and exhausting that you can't just be. You can't just be who you are. And I don't get how neurotypical or holistic people do it because they're masking all the time too. But maybe it's something about their neurotype which makes it easier for them to be flexible in these situations and not just stay true to who they are, if they even know who they are. I don't know, but like it seems so easy for them. I don't get it.
Yeah, it really does. Like I am in my job search, like I keep getting advice. Like I've been kind of dating this guy who is very he has ADHD, but the way he communicates is very like autistic. Like it doesn't feel like neurodivergent communication. And he's like, it's okay if you just exaggerate in a job interview. And I'm like, look, I can see that there's a game being played. I can kind of, look at the patterns and see like, I can suss out what the rules are, and even like maybe I could play the game too, but I just don't have it in me. Like I can't physically do that. Like, sure, I could get on a job interview and like lie about like make up some experience. Because I actually did kind of poorly in a job interview for his company that he got me. And they keep asking these questions like, tell me about a time when you did blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can't think of a specific time when I did that. So a couple of times I would be like, I can't think of a specific time, but hypothetically, this is how I would handle that situation. And then other times I'd be like, no, I do have experience with that, but not well. Like all of these obstacles happened. And so I'm like being authentic and telling them like, I don't actually have experience doing like seeing a project to fruition and this like type of thing because of all these reasons. But like in a perfect world, I can see, like, I feel like that's more valuable because I can see where things went wrong and I can tell you the lessons learned. But I think people want you to just come up with a story about, yeah, I did this and it went really great and everybody was really happy. Like, if that's not the reality, I'm not going to say that. But I think that's what they're looking for you to say. And I guess I could say that, but it's so uncomfortable. Like, it's more uncomfortable than just like I feel weird about it. And then I'm not going to present myself well because I feel weird. Like I just lied about something, or like part of me is like, for what? Why do we have to jump through all these hoops? Like I
There's
guess I'll
no
just
why
hold
behind
out
the
for
what.
company. Yeah.
Oh my God. No, as you see, I'm freaking out over here because I'm like, yeah, yes, this has literally been like, I feel like it's because like people care more about what looks right. They're about the vibes. Oh, does this look right? Does this fit here? It doesn't matter if it isn't actually right. Tell me something that's going to make me feel good about this, as opposed to, well, I'm not programmed to do that. I'm not programmed to just say something for the sake of it making you feel better if it's not true.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like you, even now having like cognitively broken down their mentality and like how they work. I get it. I understand it intellectually. It doesn't mean that I can now do it, or like that I even want to play that same game of like jockeying for position and I did this so that I can seem more interesting, and all the lies. It's like, why do you have to lie? Why are you lying? Why can't you just be your authentic self? And I see that they're not, but then like I'm getting tied up. I had like two thoughts at the same time. So basically, like the masking thing, right? Like they are all masking. Everybody is masking, whether you're holistic or autistic. But for some reason, their masking is socially acceptable, because the way they mask is to lie or embellish things in order to seem greater than they are. Whereas a lot of the times we're suppressing parts of ourselves or lying about things that we do so that we don't stand out, so that we don't draw this attention to ourselves. So that's why we're considered weird. Or it's like, oh, why are you not being your authentic self? Because you don't like my authentic self,
Right.
and you don't even like your authentic self because you're not being yourself. It's so weird to me.
Yeah, and I feel like at some point it's just coded. Like, you're misunderstanding me because you want to misunderstand me. Because I feel like I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, at this point in my life and my career, like, I've done all the things that, like, I fixed my tone because I would get feedback that you're so monotone. So I'm like very conscious when I'm at work, like, to, fluctuate the tone, make it sound like more presentable. I fixed my face because everyone told me I look angry and cold. So now I'm like conscious of my face. And I, like, you play the game. They're like, you can't say these things. You have to, like, respect the chain of command or whatever. Like, I've have all this experience of, like, getting the feedback and being like, okay, I'll do that now. Okay, I'll do that now. And at some point I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm doing all the things and I'm still not seen. I'm still not valued. I'm still, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of over it at this point. Like, I just don't want to play the game anymore. It's a game and I don't like games. I'd rather just live my life authentically.
Absolutely. And that highlights like a major difference in just like our I don't want to say, not just neurotype, but just like our sense of justice and our sense of right and wrong, and like everything that I see now as such a beautiful strength of being autistic is demonized in our culture. Like, being authentic is not celebrated. You need to fit in, you need to fit the mold, and then you need to know your place and stay within your place. Don't you dare try to step out and think that you are above your station, because otherwise you're going to be labeled as socially unaware, you're going to be labeled as arrogant. And it's just like, well, I don't know. I just really, it's, to me, it's like such a grieving process right now. Understanding just like how much how different the world is from what I would like it to be. And like, some
Yeah.
people will hear that and be like, well, you're being self-centered. Why should the world be shaped towards you? And it's not that I want the world to be shaped towards me. It's just that the way that I view the world is a very pure and black and white way of being. And if other people understood that, if we adopted more autistic ways of thinking, autistic ways of being, we actually would be happier as people. The reason why so many, in my opinion, this is my theory or my opinion, I have to always preface it by saying I'm not saying this is a fact or whatever. But I feel like the reason why so many people are unhappy is because they're not being themselves. And it doesn't matter if you are like the president and CEO of a big company. You've had to suppress many parts of yourself and many things that you believe and that you want to do in order to gain acceptance, in order to be put in the position to get to the place that you are now. And so within the system, yes, you are revered because you have this title and you have all these privileges and stuff like that. But are you as an individual actually happy? Would you have been happier being a gardener? Did you grow up wanting to be a gardener, but that didn't get respect or prestige? So you totally gave up your passion for being a gardener and devoted it to being the, first the manager and then the associate director and then the director and then the vice president, all the way up in this, hedge fund corporation or whatever, but and you want, and now people respect you for that role. But on the inside, you would have been happy in, a field somewhere tending to your flowers. And it's like, to me, I don't care if it looks right. I care more about if it feels right. I don't
Yeah.
care if people think that I look crazy, or like, I know for a fact people were looking at me like I was crazy when I left my last job, because I moved up so quickly. I had moved from being a temp to being a rep, to being a senior rep, to getting a very highly coveted position in another department, to then coming back and being a quality coach, which was a supervisor. So I was like on the track to being a manager.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, why would you leave this? Because I wasn't happy and they disrespected me and wouldn't accommodate me. I don't care what it looked like. I don't care what my title was or would have been. I was not happy and nobody cared about how I actually felt. So, like, why would I stay?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like people aren't asking why enough. Like, they're not curious about, like, when people aren't happy. I don't know. I feel like we're told, everybody in, at least in this country, is told, like, these are the things that will make you happy. These are the things you should strive for. And most people are like, okay, that's what I want then. And no one's ever asking, like, is that really what I want? Like, what do I actually want? I feel like that's kind of where I'm at in my life right now. Is I was doing a career that I just kind of fell into, that I was like okay at. But like, what do I want? It's not making me happy. What do I want to make me happy? And there's so many like arbitrary barriers in this country because of like capitalism, because of like money. Like, I am struggling, like you were talking about struggling to pay for school. Like, I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, my job was going to pay for it and then I got let go. And so like, I would love to like go full time, but I'm only able to go part time because of finances. And like, switching careers is like a financial investment. Like, I can't, after, like, I'm almost 40, after being in a job or a career for close to 20 years, it's hard to like start at the bottom of a completely different industry. I don't know.
Yeah.
Not to like turn it around and make it about me and my situation, but that's kind of where it's resonating.
Nah, this is a free chat. I don't know if you realize that we just went into talking because I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to chat with you, and I knew that we would obviously hit on some topics.
Yeah, we started from how are you? How am I? I'm suffering from systemic issues. The whole country's a mess. That's how I'm doing.
Yes. Like, oh no, but actually I feel like we started to talk about that last time we chatted too, about like capitalism and how that literally is, in my opinion, that is every ism, to be honest, is our problem. But specifically in this country, capitalism is so disabling to everyone. But when you are also disabled, it is like a double down. It's like
Yeah.
extra punches to the gut, because it's like, okay, everybody is struggling in this system. Everybody is unhappy for the most part, even the people at the top. And they may have convinced themselves that they're happy because they have gained this title, or they have this, or they may not be struggling financially. But you brought up like nobody asking why. That is one of my biggest things. That is a hill I will die on. People are so freaking surface level. They don't want to ask the question why, because as soon as you ask that question, you will realize how flimsy so many things you have based your entire life on, or so many beliefs that you think are like core truths to the universe. How this, like, it's like a total house of cards. As soon as you ask why, people get offended. Like, why are you asking me why? That's not the problem. The problem is the answer to my question, and you don't want to broach that topic. So this is why we keep it all surface level. This is why people project, oh, you're just this, or you're just mad, or you just want this, and dismiss it, as opposed to like, no, we need to actually look at this and realize that what we're doing is not working. Yeah. And when you said that people kind of like, because of capitalism, it's like we're told this is what's going to make you happy, so you need to strive for this. That's why we're like, people who choose to leave that system are seen as crazy, because it's like, how could you possibly be happy outside of this? Well, because this system only fits a very, very small amount of people.
Yeah.
And I'm not that person. And so I'm finding what actually resonates with me. And that doesn't make me crazy. That doesn't make me any less worthy of being taken seriously. or respected. But that seems to be my experience. Is like as soon as you step outside of this box, you leave corporate America or you leave academia or you leave something that is deemed respectable. You're crazy to want to try to make money being a content creator, or you're crazy trying to be a writer or an artist. Like, why would you do that? And they only respect you if and when you become famous off of it or you make a bunch of money, as opposed to I'm a happy human being.
Yeah.
I genuinely like who I am. To me, that's successful.
Yeah. It's like crabs in a bucket. Like, if
Yeah.
you're trying to get out, then why can't I get out? You know what I mean? Like, people, if you are successful doing something that you love, that shines a light on people who are doing something that they don't love. Like, hey, you could have that too if you just made different choices. Um, but like, imagine making a whole lifetime of the wrong choices and then seeing like, oh wait, another life would have been possible for me if I just questioned this one thing. I feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to be mad at you and be like, you're doing it wrong, than to like admit that my whole life could have been different.
Oh yeah, I like to say cognitive dissonance be whooping a lot of people's asses because as soon as they get confronted with something that like contradicts their core beliefs, like, oh wow, I've grown up being told that the only way to be respectable is to go to college, get a degree, work for a company for 30 years, and retire. And in that time, marry somebody who I may or may not actually like, but they fit the role and they're available at this time. So sure, I'll marry them, have the kids, have the house, and do all these things. And then you're sitting back at the end of your life and you're like, yeah, I'm accomplished. But it's like, and then you see people taking the other route, and it's like there's no way they're going to be happy. Or like you just said, if they realize and see, hey, this person is happy, no, they're not. They must be crazy. Or like just the
Yeah.
whole dismissive thing and being like, if you didn't do it the same way that I did, if you didn't dull yourself, if you didn't compromise your own morals, if you didn't play the game like I did, then you're bad. I did it right because look at me. And it's like, sorry to tell you, you could have had a whole lifetime or at least a good chunk of your lifetime because, I mean, not all of us realize it at a young age. I'm also in my 30s. I'm about to be 35 in a couple months. And this is only a recent thing, but I'm glad that I'm learning it now because hopefully I'll live another 35 years or whatnot and have another,
Yeah.
the second half of my life being true to who I am. But yeah, it's really sad when I see some of these people and most of them that are at the top are older than us at this point. You spent your whole life playing into the system, and now you see that there is a generation of people um, that are actively fighting against it and saying, no, we don't have to follow the same path that you did to find happiness. And it's like cognitive dissonance has made their brains melt and seep out of the side of their ear. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, although I feel like that's kind of a battle we have to do every generation, like just for a little bit of progress. And then like what's progressive now, or what was progressive like for our parents' generation is not, it's like, that's the bare minimum today. It's, we're just moving the needle little by little each, because like, I don't know, I find a lot of hope in like the youth of this generation. I mentioned I'm going to classes during the day with like a lot of the people in my class are like 20 years younger than I am, like going to college for the first time. So not all of them give me hope, but a lot of, especially like the ones I see on social media, like that, they're just not standing for things that we stood for before. Like they're not putting up with shit,
yeah.
which I find really, maybe the country will change within our lifetimes.
No, that's a good point. Like we're quote unquote losing a generation. I don't think that that's particularly a bad thing because a lot of things that come along with that generation are terrible policies and beliefs that have been passed down and baked into our system. But with these, like the Gen Zers that are like, we're not taking shit. Like, this doesn't make any sense. We're going to protest. Like, I feel like I feel like that does give me some hope as well, but I feel like it's very slow moving because again, we're still keeping it very surface level.
Yeah.
Very surface level. It takes a lot to move the needle just 1 degree. And you have to fight so hard just to prove that your point is valid. We keep getting invalidated. So whether you're young, whether it's the Gen Z people being invalidated because of their youth, it's like, oh, you're too young to know. Or if you are not Gen Z, you are older, but you are autistic. Oh, you're autistic. How could you possibly, like, they will find any reason to dismiss our point of view. And so that's why I don't think it's such a bad thing that we're quote unquote losing a generation, because they need to go, or at least their opinion or them being in control of how things are shaped needs to go. It's a very antiquated idea. It's very restrictive, and it's what's gotten us into this messed up situation that we are in as a country, where people are just unhappy. People are unhappy. Like I was talking to Christelle before we got on, when we started to broach the topic of being expats. I'm like, people want to leave this country, not necessarily because they want to leave their homeland and leave everything that they've ever known, but it's because there's, for a very limited amount of people, there's opportunity. For the rest of us, we're forced into a system that does not work for us. If you don't work, you don't have health care. If you don't have health care, you can't work. It's a lose-lose situation, and people are just tired of feeling like, well, why am I existing simply to feed this system? Because that's how it feels some days. I'm existing to feed the system. I'm not living. And I want to live. I only get one life.
Yeah, I agree. I've been like so depressed the last couple of months, and I think that's why I get so angry about systemic issues, because a lot of like the challenges that I'm facing are systemic to me. I feel like it's people who are autistic, like you, think differently. We think in terms of systems. We're curious. We analyze things, and we do ask why. And so when I'm thinking about my own situation, I'm not just like, oh, I'm going through a hard time. I'm like, well, this is hard for me because of this, because of that, because of that. And I trace it all the way back to, well, we live in a country that just doesn't support people. Like this is the way things are designed to work. Like if you can't afford something, like if you're late on a bill, for instance, what do? They charge you a fee. So like I can't afford this amount. So your solution is to make the amount higher. Like that doesn't help me. That keeps me in the situation. So it's like, it's really oppressive. Like I complain to my therapist almost every week about my car because I can't afford to get it repaired. Like 4 years ago, I drove into a snowbank, and so the front of my like bumper's all mangled, and it's been like that. It's like held together with duct tape, and everyone's like, "Why don't you fix it?" Well, because it's going to be $1,500 to fix, and I don't have that. So in Massachusetts, where I live, you have to get your car inspected annually. And so I failed the inspection. So now I have a big R on my hood. And so I keep getting parking tickets because I have this expired inspection sticker. And so every time they see it, it's $40. And so the $40 keeps adding up. I'm like, so because I can't afford to pay something, now the amount that I have to pay is just getting exponentially larger. And like that's kind of how everything works here. And it's hard to not be like, get myself wound up, and like it then becomes a more overwhelming, like bigger issue, because it's, how do I fix the whole country? I don't have to fix the whole country. I just need to pay my parking tickets. But I get wrapped up in like, this whole country, the whole system is broken.
I totally feel you on that. Like, yes, the systems-based thinking, I think sometimes is what keeps me so angry, is because so it's what keeps me so angry, but it's what's also keeping illicit people from being as angry as they should be, because they keep it very surface level. They're like, okay, well, this is what I'm going through. I just hate that, they may take it as far as saying, oh, Massachusetts is stupid, but they won't take it further. They won't step out and be like, oh, it's a larger issue. And they'll just like bitch and complain and figure out a way to figure this one part out, and not get lost in the fact that the whole thing is fucked. And that it's like a Swiss Army knife of terribleness. And like they pull out this tool of oppression and this tool of oppression all connected to one thing to hit you in different ways to keep you down. And that can get really overwhelming because you feel like, well, where do I begin? If it starts here and it doesn't just affect me, where could I even begin to possibly affect change? And something, and that can really make you feel like depressed. Like sometimes, like, so this is me telling on myself and being very candid, but like, I remember in my mid-20s, I was super, super depressed, like suicidal.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to a place where like I recognize where that comes from, and I, on a consistent basis, for the most part, am not like that. But every once in a while, sometimes I'm like, what is the fucking point? What's the point? It's hard sometimes, like to think, like, why am I doing all of this? I'm getting up every day. I'm doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, which is literally insane. What is the fucking point?
Yeah.
But then I think about like, well, I only have one life. And there are so many things that I want to do. There's so many things about myself that I haven't had a chance to express yet. There's so much good that I feel like I could bring to the world. And that keeps me going. But sometimes I'm not gonna lie. I'll just sit there and I'm like, here I go. And I'm just like, what is the freaking point? Like, I don't get it. It's so freaking hard and I hate it. It shouldn't be this way. Life doesn't have to be this hard. And that's the thing. When you see what the problem is and you see that the solution is simple, but people just refuse to believe it, or they're so beholden to this stupid fucking system, it's like, why do I keep fighting when people don't care? They don't want to wake up. They don't want to see how bad this shit is. So what is the point?
Yeah. Yeah, I get stuck on that too. I wish I had an answer. I wish I knew what the point was. In one of my classes the other day, we watched a documentary about the first queer riot in the U.S. So even before Stonewall in the 60s, there was a cafeteria called Compton's in the Tenderloin in San Francisco. And these trans women in the 60s were just getting harassed by the police constantly. And like their lives were miserable because the police would just not let them live just for like existing. They would get thrown into jail for like a night, for a month, for like several months for like female impersonation, for like having the wrong haircut, for wearing lipstick. And so finally the way that it went down, there was one night in this cafeteria. So it was they call it a cafeteria. I don't know if that's what cafe is short for. I thought cafe was just French, but it's just like a diner basically. But they were open 24 hours. And so that's kind of where the queens and trans women and kind of the unsavory characters of San Francisco's Tenderloin would hang out. And so the cops came in to harass somebody and they put their hands on this trans woman and she threw her coffee in his face. And the whole thing just erupted. People were like, beating up the cops. Basically, they set a police car on fire. Like the paddy wagons were there. They were like putting people in. Meanwhile, like people are throwing like mugs and plates and stuff at them. And it just like the police kind of had enough. Like they were in like physical danger. They were outmatched. And so it like from that point on, things kind of just shifted. Like trans women were allowed to just shop and be left alone and dress like the women that they were. And like it kind of changed from that point. And it's like, there was also this guy that they kept interviewing. He was like a community relations person within the police department. And the way that things kind of improved in the city is that he served as like a kind of a liaison between the community and like the people who were being mistreated. And so they showed like trans women at a microphone talking about their experiences. And every time they interviewed this guy, he was such a fucking idiot. Like he was a buffoon. Like he it was like, yeah, so we'd round up all the queers and bring them to the Tenderloin because that's where they'd be happy. And the interviewer's like, well, why would they be happy there? And he's like, well, that's because where other people like them are. Like they're there because you put them there? Like,
Right.
it's so silly. But he used his privilege to like give a voice to the other people to like share their experiences. And for me, it was so sad. Like, there are people that have existed throughout history who know like this is what the problem is. This is how things can operate better. Or like people that have never met a trans person have all these ideas about what a trans person is, right? And then you meet somebody and they're like, no, I'm just a human who just wants to live my life. And like
Yeah.
when you get that reality face to face, then it's harder to like be committed to this idea that you have. So it, to me, it's sad that there's a whole bunch of people that just don't have experience with these things. And so they keep operating under the status quo because we don't have some like old white man, some idiot to speak for us, to speak the language that they'll understand. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
great that there are like, I also got like really activated thinking about a riot. Like imagine feeling like you have no choice but to like to riot, to like set things on fire, to like cause people physical harm. Like that is like truly being backed into a corner. And it just makes me so sad about
Absolutely.
like that's I hope that story was relevant. I would like just as we were
No,
thinking, I'm like,
yeah.
there are people that know that like I am not an economist. I don't know what a better system would be other than capitalism than what we have now. Like I lack the education or imagination to really come up with something. But there are people out there who must have something better. Like, you know what I mean? Let's find
Well,
them and listen to them.
absolutely. No, you made a perfect point. I'm glad you brought that story up because yeah, it feels like we get backed into a corner and it's like eventually we're gonna have to lash out. And I know most of us don't want to do that. A lot of us are like, it's just the right thing to do. Why can't we just do it? But
Yeah.
unfortunately, I actually saw something recently where it was like, oh, I don't know your opinions on Drew Afualo.
I kind of love her, but I don't know much about her.
I love her. She's freaking my hero.
She
So I
makes
saw
me
a
laugh.
I love her so much. But at first I was trying to figure out why I loved her so much because like she's kind of the opposite of where I have been, but I know why. It's because she understands how to get through to our oppressors. So like I saw a recent clip of her in a podcast interview where she was talking about like I know that I'm not going to change people like these terrible dudes' minds. I know I'm not here to change. Like this is their opinion. So like, but a lot of the time you can only get through to certain people or highlight certain people by speaking their language. And a lot of these people's language is violent.
Yeah.
They enact violence, whether it's physically or verbally. And she's like, so my goal is to shame you, is to make you feel like the piece of shit that you are, because you're not gonna get it unless you get hurt the same way that you hurt people. And when she said that, I was like, that is such a great point because I'm still going about it like, well, it's the right thing to do. We should just do it because it's the right thing to do. But when you explain it to these people that way, they're just going to keep dismissing you like you're so pie in the sky. Oh, isn't that cute that you think that we could just do this, that, and the other? Like when Bernie Sanders was running.
Yeah.
I love Bernie Sanders, and to this day, I will never stop believing that he should have been our president. And I really, really, we deserved. You know what? No, actually, we deserved what we got, but we
Yeah, we
should have.
need it.
We needed Bernie Sanders, but like they kept dismissing him as like, oh, you're so pie in the sky, this won't work. Um, Simply because he was coming at it from a way of trying to explain it logically, as opposed to he should have been shaming them and being like, "How dumb are you to think that we can do X, Y, Z?" If he would have taken that approach, it might have actually worked. And it's a shame that you have to go negative and you have to go low to speak the language. But when you have people that are down there, you have to meet them where they are if you want them to elevate. And
Yeah.
sometimes that is throwing a riot. Sometimes that is shaming them, making them feel afraid that we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And I don't like it. It's counterintuitive to who I am because I like justice, not necessarily revenge or violence. But sometimes, like you have to hurt people's feelings in order for them to even consider listening to you or waking up. And I think that's where we need to start moving towards. Not necessarily like not riots and violence, but like being less um being okay with being seen as a bad person, or being okay as being interpreted as being angry or mean.
Yeah.
And me, especially as a Black woman, I have developed people pleasing tendencies due to being told I'm too much from a very young age, and being told I have to hide myself and dull myself, because if I'm not the happy smiley girl, I'm an angry Black woman.
Mm-hmm.
And that's dangerous, because I can get my life taken at a minute, in a blink of an eye, right? But I'm starting to not be afraid to be perceived as the quote unquote angry Black woman, because I am a Black woman and I am angry, but I have a reason to be. That trope, the angry Black woman, makes it seem like we're just angry for no reason, like it's just inherent in us to be angry. But we have every fucking reason to be angry. And I'm okay with showing that I'm angry and this is why.
Yeah. I feel like that's exactly why it's a trope, right? Because if we just assume that the anger is not justified, it's easy to just be like, oh, she's, just a stereotype. Like, I don't know. When people are angry, there's usually a reason for it. And I mean, Black
Exactly.
women are the most disrespected people in our country. I Yeah, I mean, that's a broad statement. I don't have any data or facts to back
I'd
that
agree
up.
with it.
But like,
Systemically, at least.
I feel
Systemically.
like any Black woman that I've met who's angry is probably angry for a good reason, and usually not as angry as she ought to be, in my opinion. So IDK.
No, I definitely agree with you on that. Like, if we look at the statistics, or just look at the power dynamics, who's at the top?
Yeah.
Cishet white men. Cishet white men. So who's at the bottom? Anyone who is directly diverged from that. So even if you take out cishet and just say, white men at the top, Black women at the bottom, and then when you add more intersections to it, it adds more distance between it. And so I feel that a lot, because like I'm a woman, I'm Black, I'm disabled physically, and I have a mental disability. I'm also queer. So it's like I have all the intersections. I feel
Yeah.
like, and so, but that what that does is, for me, I think it gives me a very clear view, because when you're at the bottom and you see everything that's happening at the top, it's like I have the clearest view. I feel like there's not anything blocking my view. I see exactly how it works. But then you got to
That's
try
a
to
good
get
point.
through those different layers, and the further you are up on the totem pole, the more you have to like deconstruct in your own life to see what's actually going on, and not just dismiss it as, oh, she's just mad because she's fat, or she's just mad because she's Black, or she's just mad because she's a woman. Like, no, like I am angry because my position in these intersections has given me a clear view of every fucking thing that's going on. It's like standing in the middle of a traffic circle and being able to see the traffic coming from every direction. I have a clear view of everything that's going on. All you see is what's right in front of you as you come down your lane. And
Yeah.
you may run into something as you merge into traffic, but all you got to do is swerve around and then keep going on your way. I see everything as it's happening, and it affects me equally at the same time, and it's fucking frustrating. And then to be dismissed as just like you're angry or you're just mad because things aren't going your way. Going back to what we said earlier, why aren't they going my way?
Right. Imagine coming across somebody who has all the answers and just refusing to listen to them. Like, like exactly what you're saying. Like, you see how things really are. So imagine, like, why wouldn't I listen to your experience and like hear how things really are, unless I'm more committed to how they're not, how like I wish they were.
Yeah.
Or unless, like, I mean, the way that things are do benefit certain people, just
Yeah.
not us.
Absolutely. And then the crazy thing is, because there are some people that it benefits, we've been fed the lie that if you do X, Y, and Z, you'll reap that benefit too. But more times than not, you never will. You'll just continue to be part of the system. Like, going back to your example of like, if you have a bill and you're late on it, now all of a sudden you owe more. It's because you're not supposed to get out of it. They want to keep you under the thumb. They want to keep you in a position to where you have no choice but to continue to play the game, lest you go homeless, lest you get put in debtor's jail. If they still had debtor's jail, actually, there's some. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but like I feel like a lot of these things never went away; they just evolved.
But if they could just call it debtor's jail, they would. But they keep it. They keep you stuck in different ways, and it's baked into the system, and people are just conditioned to be like, oh, well, I guess this is how it is, and I'll just try to carve out my little slice of happy in something that's not ever meant to work for anybody other than the ones that are pulling the strings.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating, and a lot of the times it makes me like a little, I don't want to say hopeless, but it's just like going back to this, like, what is the point? And that's part of the reason why I'm like, I want to leave this country and go somewhere where like capitalism doesn't rule. Cause I mean, unfortunately, capitalism is a sickness that has invaded almost every corner of this world, but there are still so many thriving societies where there's a level of socialism still there, like basic needs like universal health care, having a UBI, and different
Wait, what's a
social systems.
UBI?
Oh, universal basic income.
Oh.
Yeah, I think like some Nordic countries, maybe like I got to do more research on this, but maybe like Sweden or Norway or something like that has like, or Finland, they give you like $1,000 a month just for being a citizen. On top of whether you have a job or not, you get like additional, like just a living, cost of living stipend. Not having your healthcare tied to your employment, having access to mental health care, having affordable housing. Those things are doable. They're more than doable if you have a system where they care about you as a person. But we don't live in that kind of system, at least not here.
Yeah.
We live in a system where we don't care about you as an individual. We need you to produce and continue to perpetuate this system. And if you're not doing that, then we're going to make your life difficult. If you're not working and we're not able to earn tax dollars off of you, then you are worthless. You're not going to get accommodations. You're not going to be a leech on our system. And yeah, they really find ways to just keep you either beholden to the system or drum you out. It's like, you ever see Divergent?
Yeah.
So I was watching that again recently, and I feel like that is such a perfect analogy for being autistic, being neurodivergent in this system, because she didn't just fit into one box. She could see what was going on from every angle, which is why she had to break the whole system.
Yeah.
But the people who didn't fit into one, they were the factionless. And that was like everyone's greatest fear. They didn't want to be factionless. I have to have a faction. I can't not pass this. I can't be one of those people that's out on the street that doesn't have a home, that is looked at like they don't have anywhere to belong. But it's like, y'all have the resources to take care of those people who are factionless. You just chose to let them be out on the street because they didn't fit into one particular mold. And yeah, that's what's freaking going on. That movie, Art Imitates Life, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? It was a nice day yesterday, and I went for this guy that I'm seeing, and I went down to like the beach, basically. There's a place near Boston called Castle Island. It's neither a castle nor an island. It's a little peninsula that has like an old fort on it. But it's really sweet. I love the ocean, and so I love going there. It's kind of by the airport, so you can go there, you can watch the ocean, there's boats around, you can see the planes coming in really low. So we're hanging out there, but they have all these benches all over the place. But all of the benches have like the little armrests in the middle. And my friend was like, do you know why they have those armrests in the middle? And it's to keep homeless people from sleeping on these benches, which is so ridiculous. Like homelessness is a problem, but instead of like, trying to solve the reason why people don't have homes, we're just going to put this little thing here so you can't sleep here. Like, I don't care that you're homeless. Just don't be homeless here. You know what I mean? Like, it's easier to do these little things than to actually solve the systemic issue.
Yes. Oh my God. I didn't even think about that. I've seen those kind of benches before, and I just thought, oh, armrest, it's a long bench, but that's so fucked up. Or like when I forget where it was, there were like spikes put somewhere. Like,
yeah,
I can't remember exactly where that was, but like I remember reading about like, yeah, they put spikes somewhere so that I actually don't even like to say homeless anymore. I say unhoused because that's what they are. There are plenty of places here that go unoccupied that could literally just be used to help people. So unhoused people to, to not lay on these spikes. And I'm just like, yeah, we would much rather demonize people, individuals, as opposed to looking at the system that created the problem that caused them to be like this.
Right. Like, we shouldn't feel like grossed out by unhoused people. We should feel guilty that we live in a society where there's like, billionaires and there are people that can't afford to eat. It's like really messed up.
And the crazy thing is I'm learning, like a lot of unhoused people have jobs. You can have a job and still be homeless, or you can have a job and only have a car, or only make enough to afford your car. So now your car is your transportation and your home.
Yep.
But like again, we have this one image of someone who may have had a drug problem, who may have did that, or the stereotype. But then again, even if you take that person, why? What caused them to go down that road? People don't usually just like pick up a drug habit for no fucking reason. It's usually to cope with a system or a life that was influenced by a system that has made things so difficult for them that they have no way to cope with it other than to escape their own minds.
Yep.
So even the person that you look down on and you call a crazy crackhead or whatever, ask why. No one who grew up with stability and being supported and being reaffirmed and having their needs met chooses to wake up one day and live on the street and not be able to know where they're going to have their next meal and be dependent on substances just to get through the day.
Yeah, that's totally true. And so this is making me think of Devin Price on Instagram has been posting a lot recently about like drugs and how like it's not that different from somebody who needs caffeine to get through the day, or Adderall to get through the day, or like an SSRI. Like, those are drugs too. But we like as a society are so judgmental of like certain like ways of coping or managing. Like, somebody who is getting high all the time, they're doing that for a reason, like you said. And it's like to manage, to get by, because life doesn't feel good, because life is hard. I don't know.
Absolutely. Sometimes you just need to get out of, you just need to not think about how shitty everything is. And then the worse your situation is, if you're living on the street and it's fucking wintertime and you can't sleep on a park bench because they put a freaking barrier there. And so what are you going to do now? You got to like just curl up in a corner and like not have any kind of shelter or comfort. Like,
yeah.
And then society will like continues to perpetuate like you need to look down on these people. And then they'll hold them up as an example of why you need to continue to buy into the system. You don't want to be that beggar on the street, do you? Okay, so then I need you to come into work and continue to be inauthentic to yourself and make me a bunch of money while you make pennies on the dollar.
Right.
It's all fucked. It's just all fucked. I hate it.
And we were talking earlier about like, I forget. Something you said reminded me earlier when we were talking about like being authentic. Like, they don't want us to be authentic. But when you think about like the word authentic, like everybody says that that's a value of theirs. That's really ironic. Like the irony of saying that you espouse authenticity when really you don't. Because like I feel like I've been burned a lot by like in job interviews, people are usually like, it usually comes up like, what are your values? Like, what do you stand for? And I'm like, I stand for authenticity, usually is like up there for me, because I want to know like what's really going on in a job. I'm going to be asked to solve problems. I want to know what the actual problems are. And I want to come up with solutions that are actually going to fix them. And people are always like, yeah, authenticity is so great. Authenticity. We love authenticity. It sounds great. And then they don't. When you show up authentically, they're like, oh. They don't want you to be authentic. They want you to be authentically like in the mold. Like, but those people don't exist. There's no one authentic who fits in any mold.
Exactly. Oh, that's such a great point. Yes, they want you to authentically fit into their prescribed mold. So, like, do you not have a problem being fake? Then that's the
Right.
authenticity that that we're actually looking for. But you meant actual authenticity, so we don't like that. And it's like, yeah, that has burned me so many times too. Well, that's what burned me, especially in my last job, because when I first started there, I started there back in 2017, so it was way before like 3 or 4 years before I started to go down this self
Yeah.
healing journey, which led to me understanding that I'm autistic and unmasking and breaking these people pleasing tendencies, right? And so it burned me because I had already built this reputation of being the go-to girl and being like, no complaints. I'm not going to complain. Nothing's wrong. Everything's okay. To as I started to unmask and get more comfortable and being authentic and saying, actually, no, this does bother me and I need this accommodation and I can't do this. Oh no, now you're a problem. You just want something for nothing. Oh,
Yeah.
why can't you just go back to being this, that, and the other? And it's like, because you didn't actually like me. I realize now you didn't like me. You liked the role that I played for you. You liked the part that I played, which was the subservient yes girl that
Yeah.
was very good at her job and didn't complain. But now I'm still very great at my job. I'm still being used, my work is still being used as the example for everyone else to follow. But because I am okay now with advocating for myself and asking for certain things to be put in place, now I'm a problem. Now I'm no longer the person that is the golden girl that you tell everybody that they should emulate. Oh no, you don't
Yeah.
want. Actually, oh my God, I was thinking about this the other day. I remember toward the end of my time at the job before I went out on FMLA when I was actually still at work. I was walking with one of my teammates, and she was she told me that she had ADHD, and I wondered why we always had really good conversations. Like
Yeah.
we used to info dump back and forth, and I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. But we were like chatting and walking around, and one of the directors from the department, and he was like, and he said it in a way that was like trying to be a joke, but you can tell he was like serious and like, I don't like this. I don't like you guys, this, that, and the other. And
Yeah.
I realized it's like he didn't want me rubbing off on her because she was still very much the company team player. And I was bringing up issues and she was still like, I love this job. Everything is okay. She was me 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And so he was like, I don't like you two. What are you guys talking about? Like jokingly, but not jokingly.
Yeah.
I'm like, why would you say that? Why would you say you don't like us two being buddy buddy and walking and talking together? It's because you don't want her to start to question things. You want her to you see that I could possibly rub off on her that everything that glitters ain't gold here.
Mm-hmm.
But in the moment I didn't really get it. But I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, yeah, about that, like how people will say stuff like it's a joke to hide, like people hide what they really feel in jokes, but you're not supposed to call it out because then you'll get gaslit. They'll be like, well, I didn't actually say that. I don't know why you're getting a problem with that. It's because you implied it. And I get that. But that's a whole other tangent. But yeah, it's really freaking it's really freaking frustrating. This has been a whole rant. This is a rant episode, you guys. I just realized we never.
I know. I always do that to you. I think it's because I'm depressed, so I get so angry about everything. And then you see the same systemic issues, so we like gas each other up.
But you know what? I actually love that because like I've been very isolated lately. Like I had to cut off all of my like people I thought were my friends because I realized they were using me and manipulating me this whole time and they didn't respect me at all. So like I'm angry too. Like I've been going through a bit of a rough patch, just like really like grieving these relationships and grieving the fact that I have to compartmentalize relationships. Like and like I was just talking about this earlier. It's like I used to go into every friendship, like everybody's my friend at equal levels. Like I don't have you as my friend that I only talk shit with and you that I only go to have coffee with and you're good for going to concerts with. Like that's never been me. If you're my friend, you're my friend completely. But I realize now that like you have to compartmentalize a lot of people because they don't give 100%. They look at me as just the role that I can play for them. So if I want to keep people in my life, or if I care about people, even sometimes family members, I have to realize that I can't go to them about everything. I can't info dump with them. I can't talk to them about systemic issues. I have to keep it surface level. We can only talk about the cute cat videos, or we can only, talk about, going to this concert or something like that. We can't actually talk about the things that matter. And that hurts because I appreciate these kinds of conversations.
Yeah.
I appreciate us being real and authentic, like, and not just having to be like, oh yeah, did you see that new episode of Abbott Elementary? That was great. I love Abbott Elementary. It's a great show. It's one of my faves.
I mean, yes, I actually just discovered it recently, and I watched the whole thing through like 4 times.
You're caught up to the current episodes?
Yeah, and then I'll go back to the first episode and watch the whole thing all over again. It's so good.
I love it. So I'm glad that we just brought that up. Greg is autistic.
Yes.
Greg is autistic. The episode where he was trying to figure out why his coworkers didn't like him, and he realized it was because he doesn't engage in small talk. I cried. I literally cried watching the episode because I was like, that is me. That is so what happened to me. Once I stopped masking at work and I stopped doing the small talk for the sake of small talk, and I just came and did my work, I was still pleasant. I was still doing my job. When people spoke to me, I would speak to them, but I did not force myself to be in these stupid freaking interactions. And then people didn't like me. They thought I was stuck up and blah, 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 blah. And I saw that. I was like, oh my God, if he isn't autistic, I don't know.
He 100% is. The episode where he doesn't like pizza and then he's eating lunch in his car because they don't like. Yeah, there's like a lot of things that I don't like that are normal thing. Like I hate apples, for instance, and especially in the fall up here, everyone wants to go apple picking. It's all apple pie, apple crisp, apple this, apple that, and I'm like, I hate apples. I can't do it. And everyone's like, how can you hate apples? I don't know. I just don't like them.
Right. But it doesn't make you a bad person or weird. It's just like, this is my preference. But yeah, like, I don't know, just authenticity. On a quote to wrap it all up, I guess. Authenticity is often espoused, but not actually practiced. And it's usually going to be demonized if your authenticity is actually authentic and not you just being able to go with the flow like everybody else. And I think that is something that I would like to highlight a lot more, is like the need to really be authentic. And the way that we do that is to start questioning things. Why do I believe this? Why do I do this? And is it really speaking to what makes me happy, or is it speaking to what I think other people will think of me if I do it?
Yeah. Yeah. I keep thinking about, I've been watching Catfish, the TV show. It's awful. Don't watch it if you haven't seen it. I can't stop. But they're always like, so what? And do you know about it? Like, do you know the premise?
I've seen it a few years ago where like people will like, yeah, I think I know.
They're always like, why do you like this person? Like, you say you love this person you've never met, you've never even FaceTimed, you don't even know if the pictures they've sent you are really them. Why do you love them? And they're always like, because they were there for me, because they did this for me, because they did that for me. And it's always like about what they're getting out of this relationship. And then they meet them and they're like, oh, you're fat? No, I don't want to date you. And it's like our abilities change constantly, like from day to day, within a day, from like year to year. What I'm able to provide is going to change. And so if you base a relationship on what someone is able to give to you, they're not always going to be able to give that to you. It's going to change. And so I look for connections based on like who the person is, like what their values are, what they like, who they are as a person, not what they give to me, because like while I love what they're giving to me, I understand that that is not going to be there. You know what? That's not dependable.
Yeah.
Like that could change. And so like I hate being in relationships where like my last relationship ended and I feel like it was an ability issue. Like I got to a point where I was severely disabled by my depression, like I couldn't work. I was doing ECT and he was just like, "No, I can't do this." And it's like, if you're like, I want to be valued for who I am, because what I'm able to provide is not going to remain constant. And so I
Mhm.
don't want to be rejected when I am suddenly disabled. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's such a salient point. Now you bring up a great point about. I was writing about this recently. I haven't published it yet, but I was writing about how relationships are so transactional in this society, where it's like people build relationships, whether they're not just work relationships, but friendships, even romantic relationships, based off of how it will benefit them. Like I know too many people who don't actually like their husbands or their wives, but they married them because they fit the role and they were available at the time. And so this is why you have so many. And I feel like this is me, my spiderweb thinking, connected to patterns. Why you have so many people who will get married but continue to be unfaithful, or they will get married and then divorce and upgrade, or they keep swapping people out because it's like, well, you no longer serve this role for me. You had kids, you got fat, you're not the hot trophy wife anymore. So I need to go and trade you in for a newer model.
Yeah.
Or or on the flip side, not to just like blame like men for doing that, but there's some women are like, you're going bald and you have erectile dysfunction now. I'm gonna trade you in for a new model, because you never actually liked or valued the person. You liked what they did for you or how they looked.
Yeah.
And to me, like that's why I'm still single, because I'm like, I don't do those kinds of relationships. I don't do transactional relationships. And if I feel like all you want is for me to serve a role, like play like your mom or your nurse, or be your help meet, I'm not interested in that. Do you value me as a person? Will
Yeah.
you love me now that I've gained back 40 pounds after I lost 140 pounds? Because over the last 3 years I gained back 40 pounds. Or did you only like me when I was smaller? Now that I'm bigger, would you not even look at me? Or if we were together, would you have kicked me to the curb at this point?
Yep.
And what will happen if I go back when hopefully, I'm in my workout clothes now, because I just came from, before I started doing this house walking. So I'm claiming that I'm going to be losing that weight again. Are you going to come running back to me now that I'm 40 pounds lighter again? Like, no, I don't like that.
Yeah.
It's either you value me and you know what I bring to the table and who I am as a person, or leave me alone, because I'm not doing transactional relationships. It's not. I'm not into it. Not interested at all.
Yeah, same here.
Authenticity or nada.
Yeah, it's just so hard. Like I'm at a point, I think, where I don't believe anybody anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's hard.
Bombastic side eye all the
People
time.
say they're authentic. Like, are you really? You say that that's what you value, but are you saying that because like that's a thing that society tells us is valuable, or because you actually value it? I don't know.
Yeah. I told my sister the other day, because again, I sometimes I think in TikTok sounds with echolalia. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, I look at everybody with a bombastic side eye, criminal, offensive side eye, because it's like, yeah, I've been burned way too many times. Like just real quick, just going back to like the kind of recent issues with like my friend group and cutting people off. It's like, I didn't look at them with bombastic side eye, and I should have, because a lot of the things that are now obvious forms of disrespect, I gave way too much grace, because I'm thinking about how I would approach the situation. Oh, I'm supposed to move in with you and you haven't done anything to prepare the space. I also know that you work 2 jobs and that you are dealing with a lot. So I gave you grace. But no, in retrospect, you had 4 months to get this one room together for me. If you respected me in any way, you would have put forth some little bit of effort to get this place clean, but you didn't. You expected me to come in and clean up your mess. That's disrespectful as fuck, and I'm not dealing with it. Bye.
I wonder if that like the consideration is like an autistic trait. Is I feel like I'm the same way. Like I feel like it's because we analyze everything, like everything to the nth degree. I'm like also with the like the conversations we have in our heads. Oh, scripting is the word that I'm thinking of. Like I very planful, very like intentional. So like exactly what you're saying. Like if I were in that situation, like I do everything that you're saying, but like other people don't do that. They don't think things through that way. They don't think outside themselves. And like, I don't know. It's just so funny that they say that autistic people don't have empathy, but it's like we really do, but it's in a different way. And I feel like it's in a more authentic, like we're empathetic in a more authentic way. Like we're compassionate and considerate. That
Absolutely
is one of my biggest pet peeves when people aren't able to like think about other people. Like, how is your behavior affecting other people? Like, you had 4 months, you could have cleaned up this room. If wouldn't you want to like move into a nice clean place for the start of your living there? Like it, I'm with you. I totally get it, and it's so sad that not everybody is considerate in the same way.
Absolutely. No, that's one of my biggest pet peeves when they say that we are not empathetic because they don't actually know what empathy is. To them, empathy is being able to pick up on their social cues. Whereas for us, empathy is being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and understand what they're going through, whether you've been through it or not. And I learned that the hard way because a lot of people would be like, or like there is this whole situationship that I've been like trying to break down because it was really like up and down, turbulent emotionally because like we were so attracted to each other but also repelled each other equally because of the way we communicated, right? And I realized he got so frustrated with me because he kept implying things that I wasn't picking up, and it was like, well, oh, she just doesn't get it or she doesn't care about me the way I care about her. But no, I do. I was saying it directly, but you thought I was too aggressive or I was putting some subtext there that wasn't, whereas you were implying a bunch of stuff I wasn't picking up on it or I wasn't reacting to what you said or did the way that you wanted me to. So all of a sudden I'm unempathetic or I don't care. No, I just was confused as to why you were saying something that was the opposite of how you felt so that you could try to evoke an emotional response from me as opposed to just being direct and saying what you meant. And so that's a trigger for me when you said about people think they were unempathetic. I'm like,
yes,
I'm not unempathetic, sir. I just didn't pick up on your passive aggressive or your passive insinuations and your games of trying to get me to have an emotional response to something that logically what you said to me isn't going to evoke that emotional response until I've unpacked what you meant by it.
Yes.
It's like, this is why we were never on the same page. Because I was saying what I meant and you weren't.
Yeah.
Ay, 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 ay.
Yeah, the guy that I've been seeing, like everything he says, I feel like I am interviewing him always. I'm like, so what did you mean by that? Oh, you just said this. Did you actually mean this or this or this? He's been like really patient, but I'm like waiting for the time where he's just like, I've had enough. This is too hard. Because I like never understand what he says. Or like the other day, he was like, oh yeah, he told me he lives at the beach. He meant he goes to the beach a lot, but I thought he was saying he lives at the beach and he lives on a marina. And I was like, that's not a beach. You don't live at the beach. He's like, I didn't mean I actually live at the beach. But it's like those moments happen constantly.
Yeah.
It's always nice to talk to somebody who communicates and says the things that they mean. Because then I can respond to what you're saying because I actually know what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know what? We're going to end on that note. You guys, authenticity and direct communication will get you a lot further with not just autistic people, but each other. Reduce the anxiety of having to ruminate over the million different things that they could have meant. If you could just know what they mean and move based off of what you actually mean, that would save so much rumination, so much anxiety. Like, what could they have possibly meant? I don't need to do that anymore.
1,000%.
I could just be like, yeah, I could just say, okay, this is what you meant. And, that's not to say that there won't be some times where you need to seek clarity, but it won't be a constant thing of having to try to go through the different scenarios in your head. Like, okay, well, they said this, but they could have meant that. And what did he mean by that? And what are they trying to imply? Like, oh God, it's so, with everything else that we have to deal with on a consistent basis, like this is just one thing that we could, as a society collectively agree to eliminate, but we just don't. We just continue to play that passive game, and it's really, really infuriating.
Yeah, I don't know why. Is it from like the Puritans? Like,
probably.
It's just impolite to say something that I don't know.
Especially nowadays, you know, so many people just want to present what looks good. They want to act like everything is okay. And everything is not okay all the time. And it's okay to acknowledge that things are not okay. You need to do that. You need to acknowledge the good and the bad, the light and the dark, to be able to be in balance. And so I'm really appreciative that we kind of went down that road and acknowledged that everything is not okay. Things can be shitty from time to time, but it's good when you have someone that you can commiserate with, or not necessarily commiserate, but, you know, share and lay your burdens in a non-judgmental space, in a non-judgmental way, and be reaffirmed and get that kind of validation. I know we talk about validation sometimes as being a crutch for people because they need constant reassurance, and that is true, but there is also a kind of validation of just having your existence reaffirmed by seeing your experience mirrored in other people, and that kind of validation we all need. It doesn't matter how much you love yourself. You cannot self-love yourself into having your experience reflected in other people and knowing that your existence is seen and reaffirmed. So these kind of conversations are super, super important, and I am so happy to have been able to be a part of this and to also share this with you guys. And make sure you go back and check out the full first episode with Stephen. Again, that was episode 1.10. And make sure you check out all the previous episodes, get some different perspectives, and learn about different people and their different experiences and journeys and processing some of the same things that we've gone over. And if you missed the previous update, this is bi-weekly now. So while you're waiting a couple weeks for the next episode, that's a perfect opportunity for you to go over and check out the previous ones, and make sure you are up to date on my vlog series, Untethered. You can catch me at deconstructing.neuro on Instagram and TikTok, and on Twitter, I am at decon_neuro. And if you like travel content, I have a personal travel blog type situation deal going on my at T Jamaica Pogue Instagram page, and also on my personal website. I have a lot more photos from my travels over the last 3 years, including when I was in Europe for about 3 weeks this past February. A bunch of pictures that I didn't post on my Instagram are over on tjamaicapogue.com. So lots of ways for you to show love, lots of ways for you to stay up to date on what's going on, and any way that you choose, it is much appreciated. I love you guys, and until next time.